Long years ago, we made a tryst with destiny. At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom.
This is the state of affairs, and I am Akshay.
China has a far more decentralized regime. The third tier is far more effective. About 50% plus of the total expenditures in the third tier of government in China. In India, it is about 3%. And the democratic India is not even emulating autocratic China's practices in decentralization and people's participation.
So one of the biggest challenges India faces now is rapid urbanization. So do you think our cities are equipped to handle this surge from the rural areas to urban areas?
No, the answer is self-evident, Akshit. We need to do a lot more. And the unique feature about a country is, for a large economy, we still haven't seen anything much. Because even now, our urbanization only 30%. By many estimates, by about 2040 or 50, maybe by 2050 in a generation's time, this 30% is likely to become 60%. Now, simple arithmetic will tell you, out of 140 crore population, 30% means about 40 crores are now in towns. 25 years since, we are likely to be 160, 170 crores population. 60% will be about 96 to 100 crores. So from 40 crores, the number is going to 95 to 100 crores. A 60 crore increase, 2.5-fold increase. So the real challenges are going to be in the future. If we think urbanization already is a challenge, we haven't even begun to scratch the surface. But that's also an opportunity, because we're still in early stages. We can learn from the past experience and the mistakes committed by us and the rest of the countries. What are the big challenges of urbanization? To my mind, there are three huge challenges. The first is, far too many people without high level of skills are forced to migrate to distant big cities. We have 64 or so big cities in India with 1 million plus population. Of them, 7 or 8 are big metropolis. If poor people from vast distances are forced to migrate to these big cities without any social support system, with hardly any housing, with low income, without proper transportation, and almost always away from their families. In most of these cases, the migrants cannot afford to take the whole family. Most often a male worker, sometimes a female worker, at the low end of the spectrum has to migrate and live alone. If something small difficulty happens in life, they're completely helpless. A bit of illness, a bit of financial stringency, loss of earning opportunity, their lives are devastated. You remember what happened during the COVID pandemic, the lockdown? Tens of millions of people, they went through hell. And that must sensitize us. Therefore, how do you create an urbanization model where many low-skilled people are not forced to migrate to distant cities? Because where people are, these skills are needed. I don't see why a carpenter should be only in Mumbai or Delhi. Wherever there are people, you require a carpenter. You require a tailor. You require a haircutter. Why should they all go to Mumbai and Delhi? These are people-specific services. If you have very high-tech services, like, very high-end programming, a film director, graphics designing, a professor in university, obviously you have to go to big cities. But 90% of the people, or 80 to 90% of the people, their skills are low and moderate level. And if you create local magnets, they should be able to go there and eke out a better livelihood, because with lower incomes, they get higher quality of life. There is a social support system. They are not disconnected from their families and their milieu. And there is no delinking of rural economy with urban economy. The second big challenge we have to address is urban amenities. Even with the current level of urbanization, which is only 30%, if it rains a little bit, it floods. Even our cities don't have more than 25 to 30% sewerage system. Almost no city in India, to the best of my knowledge, has 24-hour water supply. Though many cities like Hyderabad, they get 160 to 200 liters of water drawn from the river systems per person per day, which is equal to the water supply available in New York or London or Paris. It's not that we are drawing less water, but our distribution systems are chaotic. 40% wasted, everything is in pell-mell. And of course, we're not collecting the tariff. It's become fashionable to give free water, but ultimately it ends up being no water. So each as a community, what's happening, gated communities, they are now creating their own amenities. They are seceding from the rest of India. And they are trying to figure out a solution. That's not the best model for the country. So amenities are terrible. Water supply, sewerage, stormwater drainage, and of course transport systems. The public transport requires special attention. Even at the current level of car ownership and relative poverty in India, already our cities are absolutely chaotic. The number of vehicles increasing dramatically, infrastructure is inadequate, and if you depend on private personalized vehicles all the time, no country can deal with the traffic congestion and the pollution in the cities. And we're seeing it every day. Bangalore people used to say earlier, I remember, there could be 3 or 4 events in a day in various parts of Bangalore. I could comfortably handle all those. Today, if I go to Bangalore in a whole day, I cannot afford more than 1 event. Your simple transport bottlenecks themselves are such that you cannot do it. Now, this is just not the right way. Unless you actually improve the infrastructure, enforcement of traffic rules, but most of all, quality, integrated public transport system that addresses the last mile also. And there must be a lot of investment that should go into it. In London City, New York, etc., even 130, 140 years ago, they built the metro infrastructure. They built a network covering the whole city. Even now, we are nowhere near even 1/10 of that. And you must have integrated solution. Even when you build the public transport solution, the bus, the rail, and the metro, where tram exists, the tram, you must have integrated facility, both for common management and also the last mile solution, so that ultimately it's about commuter. It's about the people comfortably going from home to office or shopping or whatever and back home. It's not to be seen in isolation. So the whole transport network. So infrastructure and transport is the second big thing. The third big thing is governance. Our local governments are incredibly weak in this country. And urban governments are no better. At least if the urban governance, because that's where the people are paying taxes. Municipalities and cities, we have 4,000 plus urban local governments in India. Most of them are municipalities. A few may be your what we call Nagar Panchayats, on the verge of becoming municipality. Now, in almost no part of India do the urban local governments have genuine empowerment. Even when they are able to raise resources, because most money is in urban areas, property values are rising. If properly managed, resources are not a serious content in urban local governments. But the control is entirely with the state government. From a city, municipal commissioner of Hyderabad city to a small town, it's always the state government. Whereas during the British India, in Kolkata city, way back in 1924, when Chittaranjan Das became the mayor, what we call today mayor, at the time I think he was called probably chairman of the council or something, was elected, he insisted on the right to appoint his own municipal commissioner, chief executive of the municipality. And he appointed somebody from outside the government, a 27-year-old young man, a competent man, an idealistic man. That young man did a great job. So much so, when he was jailed for participation in freedom struggle, Chittaranjan Das insisted and forced the British government to allow him to continue to work as municipal commissioner, even as he was in Alipur jail in Kolkata. While in jail, he was in jail. And until he was shifted to Mandalay, later he was shifted, he continued as municipal commissioner. That was during colonial government. Today, there is not a town in India, not a city in India, where the elected municipal council or elected mayor can appoint a commissioner of their choice, and the commission is never accountable to local government. Now, we claim that we are independent India with genuine democracy and people's empowerment. If 1924 Calcutta gave greater power to elected local government then a century later today, I think we must all introspect. And unless you create that people's participation from the ward committees to the city council and enhance the capacity of the city government to improve the quality of services, because city management is a very complex thing. One of the greatest challenges of India is urban management. So unless we do that, we'll be in trouble. Of course, there are other issues, rule of law, we discussed on another occasion. With growth of cities comes challenge of law and order. So unless you create a framework for very quick disposal of cases, for a very quick punishment for simple cases, summary, and for a robust mechanism to ensure independent and effective and impartial justice system, cities will become ungovernable as well as unlivable. So there is a very clear agenda. Money is not an issue. People want it. So as taxpayers, people must start collectively organizing and raising voice instead of merely complaining. What needs to be done with clarity. And governments must realize that economic growth and the peace and order in cities, it depends largely on how you manage the cities. So the pressure has to come from both sides.
So do you think there are any urban centers in India that are faring relatively better than the others, or are they all uniformly abysmal?
See, traditionally, Mumbai was always better, right from British India. But increasingly, even in cities like Mumbai, the state is now, the state as the province, in this case Maharashtra state with the capital in Mumbai, the state government, is controlling because everything is centered on the commissioner. The mayors in almost every city have become ornamental. They wear fancy robes and a prime minister or president comes to the city and they preside over the council meetings, which are raucous and lawless mostly. But there's no real power in most cases. There are some refreshing exceptions. Kolkata used to be better earlier. I don't know how it is currently. There used to be a slightly better system. In general, Kerala is a state which tried to empower the local governments better than most other states. But on the whole, the plight of urban governments across the country, in fact, the plight of local governments, rural or urban, is extremely pitiable. India has the most centralized system of government in the world. The world's largest country by population today, the world's most diverse country by almost any yardstick, including the language, caste, region, religion, etc., having the most centralized government in the garb of democracy, it must make us think. All power is now in the hands of PM and CM, and there is no third tier of government. And even China, autocratic China, by all accounts, China is authoritarian. Nobody disputes that. Even Chinese government may make a feeble protest when you call them authoritarian, but they know and we know. And yet, China has a far more decentralized regime. The third tier is far more effective. About 50% plus of the total expenditures in the third tier of government in China. In India, it is about 3%. And in execution of any policy, while policies are made at a provincial or national level, execution is almost entirely local. They are truly empowered. And there is a meritocracy. They are enhancing their capacity to deliver. And a democratic India is not even emulating autocratic China's practices in decentralization and people's participation.
So do you think there's any country that could offer us a roadmap that is realistic?
Oh, local governments, there's plenty of experience all over the world and plenty of literature. Almost any country can give us many lessons. But to suit our requirements, we must look at specific country models. Take, for instance, London. I was very interested to learn that London city, which is roughly equivalent to some of our big cities, actually smaller than our big cities. Yeah. Now, every one of our big cities is 1 crore plus and some are 2 crores, 3 crores. But London is about 70, 80 lakh population. But they divided the city, I think, into 33 or so boroughs. Each borough functions like an independent municipality. So what does the mayor and the overall city government do? Only coordination functions are the big agenda. Transport is a big issue there. Law and order is with the mayor. So it can't be handled locally. So transport, law and order, the big city planning and heritage and other things. So those things are at the city level. Otherwise, within the city, each borough, as they call it, has now become practically a municipality with its own resources, its own functionaries, its own degree of accountability, its own delivery mechanism. I thought it was very interesting for our big cities. Not only do you require decentralization of power to cities, within the city you must decentralize power further. Otherwise, now, a city of 1 crore population, if I have a problem, I have to go to municipal commissioner. There are about 100 countries which are smaller than 1 crore population in the world. That's hardly decentralization. Similarly, you take garbage disposal, one of the great challenges in big cities anytime. The moment you centralize garbage management, it becomes somebody else's problem, NIMBY, not in my backyard. Yeah. That's not a solution. If you go for decentralized solutions as far as practicable, most of the garbage, if you segregate it, and if you locally manage it, the environmental cost and the economic cost is much less. Therefore, can we look at, it can't happen to 100%. Hazardous waste cannot be managed decentrally. Hospital waste cannot be managed in decentralized manner. But most of the waste can. So decentralized management, so the community actually recognizes what is happening. Right now, we become the problem, the part of the problem as consumers. We throw enormous amount of garbage, and how it's managed is none of our business. And somebody in the outskirts of the city, they are facing the consequences. The 5-storied, 10-storied mound in Delhi city, or in Hyderabad, there is, I think, Jawahar Nagar, where in the surrounding area, lakhs of people, they cannot even breathe properly. This is not right. So we have to look at innovative solutions which actually will work. And there are many models. That's not a problem. We must really apply ourselves, and urban management is a great challenge. Therefore, a lot of expertise also is required. Democratic and accountable management, but expertise is equally important. And if you depend only on the paid public servants, it's not good enough, because talent is all in cities. So somehow we must learn to involve the people. And I am absolutely certain if you create innovative mechanisms for people's participation, a lot of voluntary energy with enormous leadership, expertise and skill will come in to improve. Because who doesn't want to improve his or her own environment, her own surroundings? Nation is too big a concept. But my own street, my own colony, everybody wants to improve. Who doesn't want it? So you must create innovative mechanisms. If you want only paid public servants of the government to do, all the resources in the world are not enough. And B, they don't have the expertise. They're simply paid to do the work. They got a government job. They're not particularly enthused. They may not be up to date with the latest practices. But citizens' involvement in a very intelligent manner can bring enormous synergies.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much. This has been very enriching. And this is Akshat, and this is the State of Affairs.